Today we're at Sulphur Creek Reservoir. This is where the city of Evanston, Wyoming gets their water from. The reason I wanted to start here is right out here on the road is this road out here is the part of what used to be in the Transcontinental Railroad that they put in here. If you look on maps, I think the Transcontinental Railroad used to go right down through there where that house is now, and it came across this way. So we're going to go up this way, right up to the pass, where if you saw my other video, we were there. Farming community of Hilliard. Hilliard, I guess back in the 1890s, when the railroad was going through here, I guess was quite the railroad place. Just like Piedmont, I guess they had some kilns in here. And from what I've seen on the research and stuff, I think the kilns were over there along the side of the hills. But I'm not sure. And the kilns, you can see the Uintas up there. They had a flume, a big long flume that brought logs down from the Uintas so they could put them into the kilns there. So they could make charcoal to take it down to Salt Lake for their where they needed it down there for refining of ore and stuff like that. So that's some of what was here for, is that. I guess all the kilns are gone. I don't know. I think if you could get over there, you might be able to find some remnant of them, but not much. You can see right there in those krails. Right there in those krails, you can see some of the remnants of the old kilns that were here in Hilliard. Right there. That's kind of cool. I don't think they would make that deep a cut for just the county road. I think they would have just went around the other way. But I imagine for the railroad, instead of having to go around that little point, they would have just cut it through here. Think of the work they would have had to do to get that. Say, I don't know if it's original or not. I think it is, because you don't see anywhere else where the line went around there or anything. Who really knows where the original grade went through, because there's been little changes all along. This was just probably the last grade when they took the shut down and put the tunnel in. And I made a mistake on my last, if you watched the last video, I said the Altamont tunnel. The Altamont tunnel was actually the second tunnel, and I did some research. The Altamont tunnel was started in 1947 and finished in 1949. The Aspen tunnel was actually the first one. So the Aspen tunnel was the first one that was finished in 1901, and that's when this line was done away with. That's when they did away with this part of the original Transcontinental Railroad. But like I say, original should probably be put in quotes, because the original was, all along they were making little changes and straightening it up and fixing it, and who knows how many places they fixed it. Because if you go down Wasatch through Utah there, just out of Evanston where you're dropping into Utah, they have the Wasatch Tunnel. And if you drop into there, they had the original railroad kind of follows where I-80 goes down and through there, and they had that in there, but it was really steep. And so they originally went down through there where I-80 goes over Wasatch until they could get the tunnels done. Then once they got the tunnels done, they routed it through the tunnels. There was like 4 tunnels down through there. There's one right up on top that's abandoned now, but there's other ones down through there that you don't really see. Cows. So there's been a few iterations of the railroad, and they changed it as often as they could, or when they needed to anyway. Not quite rails to trails. This is still a county road, but it is a nice trail. It doesn't get used that often, so you'll see a few cars on it maybe, but you can get out and ride on it. When the railroad came through here, I don't know if you're familiar with how they did it, but they sold sections. Some of it went to the railroad. The railroad was able to sell it. Some of it went to the state, mile sections. So if you look at where the railroad came through, especially Wyoming, this is noticeable in other places, but if you look at maps that have state and federal land on it, where the railroad came through, it looks like big checkerboards, and it's just all through here. It looks like, because every other section was like either state, and some of them would be BLM, some of them would be state land, but it's just kind of frustrating around here because of the access. It's limited, you know, because you'll have a mile section of BLM land, and it will be surrounded by sections of private land, and it will touch another corner of BLM land, but you know, technically you can't access it. It's actually, there's been some lawsuits over that, whether or not you can corner cross, that have been kind of interesting. One, there's a big one going through now where some hunters did that, and they took a ladder and they went from one section to another section of federal land, and the guy sued them, said they couldn't do it, but they didn't touch his land because they took a ladder and went up over right on the corner section, so the ladder just touched the federal land, and they actually won that one, but I think they appealed it up to a higher court. So it's been kind of interesting to see how that goes, because it is frustrating. There's no big chunk, especially around here, right here by Evanston, of like BLM land that you can just get out and access, because all the BLM land is surrounded by private land. And that's because when the railroad came through, the way they sectioned it out and the way they divided it up so the railroad could sell it and make money. So it's just mile sections, and if you look at it, it looks like a big checkerboard between the federal lands and the private lands. I talked about in my last video where the Mormon Trail, California Trail, and I forgot to mention the Pony Express Trail came through this area, but they didn't come down through here. They cut up over and went down to different drainage. So this isn't an area where they came down through here. They cut up over at a different place and went down a different drainage. I don't know why, whether it was just the mountains, I guess, kind of determined where the railroad went. So this is the way they decided to come. So for whatever reason, this is the way they came, the railroad. The wildflowers are nice. You probably can't see them, but they are all over the place. Probably don't show up on the camera, but there's wildflowers all over. All right, about up to the top, right up the highest point of this little one ride. Something here I want to look at. I was going to get it the other day, but I didn't. through here. If you look right here, you can kind of see them. In front of us, see where kind of the sagebrush goes out through there? You can see the old sidings right through there. The old sidings where they used to unhook the helper engines. There's one there, it's kind of a Y. I think it used to connect back there so the trains could switch and go different directions. So there's one there. And then you can see the other coming along here. And so that's where they unhooked. I know they needed helper engines. So you can see it there where it goes through. They needed helper engines coming up from the Piedmont side, which is where I rode up the other day. They needed helper engines, and I think they needed them coming up both ways, especially in the early years. And so this is where they could disconnect them and they could turn them around here if they needed to. It looks like a Y turnaround. I think they could back up and then pull on the other direction through here for the helper engines, so they could go back the other way or just pull off and let the train go by and then pull back on. So that's those where they could change and unhook the helper engines after they made it up that hill. So kind of cool through there. You know, I guess it's just all sagebrush now, but you figure it's been 124 years since they abandoned this line, so that's plenty of time for sagebrush to grow. I want to ride through the pass again, this time through where you can see up ahead where there's a pass. So this was the highest point on this section from what used to come from Leroy down to Evanston and through here. Felt like he got rid of this. Section of railroad. Not the deepest cut. I speculated last time. I don't know why they wouldn't have. That could have been original tie, but I don't know. I don't know why they didn't take the road through here unless, say, the snow might have drifted in, or could be a bunch of reasons. It's like it might get a little wet down through here too. Could have been that, drainage and other things. But you think of this, you know, this is just a little pass, but you think of digging these, working through these with, you know, manual labor and horse, and with their little scrapers they had back then. That is just incredible. You think of them doing that and just doing all this work, and this is just a little section compared to some of the ones they did along the way. So just amazing feat making this railroad across here, doing all this. Just amazing thing they did. So we'll ride through this, turn around, and get back up on top there. If they had to do any blasting through here or not. Also looks like just sandstone, maybe a little bit through here, but most of it looks like they could have just kind of picked it out. Still a lot of work. Oh. Quite a thing. Flowers through there. Getting warm. Supposed to be one of the hottest days of the year so far today. That's why I got out early. Windmills out there. It's over by I-80. You can see them or not. And you can see the Guild Reservoir, where I was at the other day. That's all private, nice. It's supposed to be nice fishing, but it's all private reservoir down through there. See the Uintas up there. Well, 8.17 miles to here. Just about 40 minutes to get here. I didn't get my elevation gain. I have to maybe look at it when I get down, see if I can get my elevation gain and that. But good little ride. I'm just gonna head down the hill now and enjoy the ride. Hope you like these kind of videos. If you do, like, subscribe, share. Nothing else just gets me out and gets me doing stuff, seeing what's around. Kind of enjoy doing this. But remember, if I can get out and ride, you can get out and ride. Have a good day. Bye.